Hello everybody and welcome back for some weekly VR news. As always, I am Mateo311 and this is your channel for everything VR related. So today we'll discuss how VR is about to change forever because it's no longer even being called VR or even XR, it's now spatial computing. We'll get into that topic a bit later. I also have plenty of great game announcements and new releases coming to go over, and also lots of new hardware stories. This is an absolutely packed week for news. Now, there are, of course, links and timestamps if you want to skip ahead, but before we jump in, this video is brought to you by the brand new mixed reality audio visualizer FX. If you want to take your listening experience to a whole new level, go ahead and download this app. Currently available via App Lab and for only $4.99, you could go ahead and liven up your boring real-life environment with some dynamic visual effects that match the beat of whatever you're listening to. It's absolutely great for making mundane household activities a lot more fun, or if you just want to lay back and chill with a multi-sensory experience. There's a link for effects down in the description if you want to go ahead and check it out. Now, since today's news is so packed, I'm going to forego the normal check-in where I talk about what I'm currently up to in the VR world and just jump right into this week's releases, starting with Toy Trains. From the same studio that brought us the absolutely fantastic shooter Superhot comes a completely different experience. Part world builder and recreation of a favorite childhood hobby, Toy Trains is a playful track building experience with a captivating storyline. So if you're just looking for a bit of fun and you're not interested in blood and guts in VR, you might want to check out Toy Trains. Historically, before my VR days, I would have scoffed at a title like this, but I had a mild addiction to the casual world builder Little Cities VR, so I know just how fun these experiences can be. Now, if you're on PCVR, there's currently a demo available, so you could check it out right now. But if casual play isn't your style and you want some mature-themed blood and guts, Bulletstorm VR is releasing this week. It's a port from an extremely fast-paced 2011 shooter that had tons of style and over-the-top action. Now, I recently played through this whole game and we'll have coverage up tomorrow morning, so if you're interested in that, don't forget to subscribe and turn notifications on. I can't say much about the title just yet, but I will say I'm absolutely pumped to show this game off. And old-school shooters play completely different than titles we get today, so for the majority of questers out there, this should feel fresh and new. Now, we're also getting a sequel to Retropolis this week. Retropolis 2, Never Say Goodbye, is set a year after the events of the original game, and you continue the storyline of robot detective Philip Log. Now, if you're not familiar with the series, it's a story-driven puzzle experience, and it's basically a new take on the classic point-and-click adventures. Retropolis 2 adds some new features over the original, including enhanced logic puzzles, a new rotation mechanic, movement between different environments, a more challenging adventure, and a substantially longer playtime. Now, later this month, Retropolis is also getting a mixed reality spin-off, and Retropolis.line will be free to play on January 31st. So I'll give you a bit more information on that game when we get closer to release. Now, speaking of games coming soon, the unique action-adventure title Tiger Blade is making its way onto the Meta Quest. The game recently dropped for the PlayStation VR 2, and I played the first few levels over the holiday season, and it's basically exactly what I expected. It's full of fast-paced action and solid mechanics, but overall it's a bit shallow. There's no free locomotion, so you're restricted to slicing to move yourself forward, or using a grappling hook to pull yourself across the world. Like I said though, mechanically it's solid, as you're deflecting bullets back, going toe-to-toe in melee fights, switching back and forth between your pistol and sword, and finally utilizing elements from the environment to attack your enemies or defend yourself. Now, personally, I expect bigger titles from the PlayStation VR 2, but I think questers will enjoy this more casual style of gameplay. Additionally, the game has a killer soundtrack that definitely pumped me up. And our final new release story of today's video is Vampire: The Masquerade Justice, making its way onto PCVR February 6th. This stealth-driven story-based title finally allowed VR players to jump into the world of Vampire: The Masquerade. It's a dark-themed fantasy world full of vampires that can exhibit some truly unique powers. Rather than in-your-face action, you'll be sticking to the shadows and either brutally taking down your enemies or just silently sucking them dry of blood. This story of revenge takes some creepy twists and turns, and I'm really happy PC players will finally get to sink their teeth into this one, especially if you're a fan of the stealth-based genre or Vampire Masquerade universe. Now, in game update news, we finally have some new content for Population 1. On January 11th, the Core Deposit event started, and it gives you a new gameplay mechanic to unlock 5-star weapons. As always, these events give you access to unique new skins, and they also introduced the SPR, a brand new 6-shot semi-automatic sniper rifle. So if you needed any reason to jump back into that game, here you go. Now, speaking of cool new updates, full-body avatars are coming to Rec Room in March. Initially, this will be limited to level 50 players, as a bit of a thank you to the veterans out there, but soon after, everyone will have access to this feature. Now, if a full-body system just isn't for you and you want to stick with floating hands, well, you'll still have that option. I'm definitely going to try this out, and I really hope it works with my new Slime VR trackers. Now, our last game update story definitely isn't a good one. The VR MMO Zenith is working on a make it or break it new update. Basically, the studio has been operating at a loss, and if this doesn't succeed, the game's done. Now, I can't say I'm really surprised here. I was always very skeptical and kind of quite judgy on this title. I didn't believe taking classic MMO gameplay mechanics and just ramming them into VR worked. I felt the mechanics and overall gameplay just wasn't good enough to keep people coming back for more and more, and there really wasn't like a lot of compelling late game content. Plus, the major MMO fans out there, this was just too shallow of a title. So if you're a huge MMO fan, this felt like, a really simplistic, much earlier MMO. And if you were a VR fan only and never tried any of those MMO titles, they have a very unique feel, which just isn't for everyone. So you went with a niche inside of a niche and really nothing that made it new age. It just, hey, you took a new technology and this kind of addictive form of game genre that's not for everybody, but for the people who love it, it's highly addictive. Tried to mash them together and unfortunately, you just didn't pull it off. Now, I do wish them luck. I do want this to succeed. I do think MMOs really should have a space in VR, but they are notoriously tricky. VR is still a lot smaller compared to the normal gaming industry. Plenty of MMOs fail, like the vast majority of MMOs fail. So the odds were against this title from the very beginning. Now, the goal going forward is to turn Zenith into a sustainable development project. This won't just be bug fixes, polish, and some new content. That's not going to cut it. So their 2.0 update plans to literally be game-changing. It's either that or pull the plug right now and just stop the bleeding altogether. Hopefully they do come up with a new concept design that has a lot more mainstream appeal. Now, I'm definitely wishing them luck, and the studio's already done a lot more than I ever expected, so maybe they can actually pull this off. Now, one quick topic before we get to today's main story, and that's the fact that Meta Chromecast streaming is now back again. I recently reported that Meta shut it down due to stability issues, but now apparently they've re-enabled it. I have no idea what the point of disabling it in the first place was, but let's just be happy it's back and move on. Okay, so today's final topic, the fact that VR is about to change forever into spatial computing, is going to be a combination of both software and hardware topics, combined with what we're also seeing currently at CES. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. The Apple Vision Pro is right around the corner, and Apple's working very hard to turn VR and even XR into a dirty word. We like to have those sleek new titles like AR and those buzzwords you could throw out, and a new one is spatial computing, which really doesn't mean much. However, we do have a general concept of where a lot of companies want to see VR lean into. And that is the fact that they want it to become more of a phone replacement than just the gaming device that it is right now. Meta is proving that it does have a place in gaming. People love it. It's growing. It's getting better and better. As the technology gets better, though, we want to extend its usefulness so that everyone needs and or wants one. So one of the first aspects is augments. Meta's talked about this in the past, and on screen we have a bit of a first look. Basically, we'll augment mixed reality with a bunch of add-ins. Like everything VR related, in its initial stages it looks quite gimmicky. But this is just a glimpse into the things they can do. Sony even jumped into the mix with their own upcoming standalone headset. It'll be powered by the Qualcomm XR2 Plus Gen 2, which is roughly 20% faster than the Quest 3. Now, this is obviously mainly a productivity device, but overall this shows how once again everyone is interested in getting a little slice of that spatial computing pie. Now, there's also new technologies like Wi-Fi 7 just around the corner, which should have a pretty significant impact on the overall spatial computing industry. This gives you basically near zero latency when connecting to certain devices. And it also gives you a much more stable connection. There's a lot more channels, and it could switch between 2.4, 5, and 6 gigahertz signals. Now, this can obviously enhance PCVR streaming, but can also be used in a multitude of different ways. So with all major parties, including Apple, Meta, Sony, and Google, now once again interested in VR, or rather spatial computing, it's funny, once you rebrand something, everyone's excited again. But honestly, guys, we're at a point where this technology should once again boom. They had 8 years to kind of figure out the kinks of the hardware and the software, and also how to best utilize this technology. So that right there, guys, is why VR is about to change forever. It's branching into this whole new extended field that we're calling spatial computing. And with so many new players getting involved, 2024 and beyond is going to be a really exciting time for us.
And that was today's video, brought to you by my dad, Mateo311. If you enjoyed it, please go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you're new here,
Consider subscribing.
consider
Consider subscribing.
consider subscribing.
Consider subscribing.
Consider subscribing.
We'll see you guys on next time.
We'll see you guys on next time.